So at first this was going to be an unranked video about media in general, then an unranked video on video games, and now we're just back to doing this. This is what 2021 does to you people. So 2021 sure was a year. The problems from 2020 definitely bled over to this year as well, and in some cases even got worse, and for me personally it was certainly a mixed bag all around as well. But when it comes to video games, I'd say it was pretty alright. Unfortunately, I didn't really get to play that many new games this year, which is why originally this video was going to be a little different. But after giving it some more thought, I did manage to scrape 10 games I wanted to talk about, so here we are. In case this is your first time, we're not just looking at games released in 2021, mainly because I didn't play very many of them. God damn it, I need a PS5 to play Rift Apart. Instead, I'm talking about games that I played for the first time, regardless of their release year, showcasing my gaming highlights of said year. And without further ado, let's get right to it. These are my favorite games I played in 2021. Let's start off with something comfy, shall we? And by comfy, I mean a story about destroying a whole town with donut holes. Raccoons are so cool. I really need to start seeking out more indie games outside of the mainstream because they can offer small but also varied and very unique experiences. It's just too bad that scene is way too oversaturated with roguelikes. Anyway, if Donut County is anything to go by, I've been missing out on some seriously great vibes. Gameplay-wise, Donut County is very simple. You create holes throughout the town and consume everything. However, it's not as easy as it sounds, as you need to start from the smaller stuff to make your hole bigger. And there are also some puzzle-solving elements along the way to spice things up and change your approach to what you take first and how to use the items you swallow. It never gets super crazy, but since the game is pretty short, it also never gets stale. I also really like how silly the story is. The writing for the characters, especially the main character BK, is on point, and watching everything unfold due to his shenanigans is really entertaining to watch. Donut County overall is just a really comfy and fun package, and it's only amplified by the relaxing gameplay style and the vibe created by the music and the art style. It doesn't try to be anything mind-blowingly amazing, but that's okay. The whole game is just one gigantic vibe, and I can appreciate that. So in 2020, I got a chance to play Odin Sphere Left Thrasher, a cool hack-and-slash RPG made by a little company called Vanillaware. And despite some issues with it, I ended up enjoying it a lot. But while I jumped into Odin Sphere with pretty much no expectations, my next game from Vanillaware was anything but. Because fellas, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim might not be the most mainstream game out there, but almost everyone I know who played it said it was one of the best games they've ever played. As you can probably guess from its placement on the list, I don't think as highly of the game, but I still enjoyed it a bunch. If you thought having 5 protagonists in Odin Sphere was a bit much, 13 Sentinels one-ups it with a whopping 13 of them. And while this does play into some issues I have, the way the story is told, where each event keeps slowly building the bigger picture, is something I appreciate. And there is an effective story here about things like identity and humanity, and some of these moments and plot twists are insane in the best way possible. But what I really like about 13 Sentinels is its gameplay. The game is divided into 2 main sections: Remembrance, where you take control of each protagonist and unravel the story, and Destruction, where you fight against kaiju with the titular Sentinels. And this latter mode is so much fun. While it is pretty overwhelming at first, once you get to grips with it, destroying large hordes of kaiju and finding the most optimal ways of dealing with the approaching enemy is so satisfying. and with a bunch of different abilities at your disposal, each battle feels in your control. Add in a banger soundtrack and somehow even prettier trademark Vanillaware art style than Odin Sphere, and it's not hard to see why this game gets praised so much. 13 Sentinels is a very unique game, and while it didn't resonate with me quite as much as it did with some others, I'm very glad I was able to experience this absolutely bonkers tale. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of mysteries, but very rarely do those media with a mystery at their core let you solve the mystery all on your own, as there's usually a detective insert of some kind who finds the answer way before you can pick up on what happened. Unless, of course, you're the hit 2018 indie game Return of the Obra Dinn. We've got another special snowflake game, and this time we're diving into the black and white aesthetic of the open seas. In this first-person adventure game, you're hired to investigate the mysterious titular ship Obra Dinn. With the power of the Pocket Watch of Death, you're able to view the fate of each crewmate by examining their corpses, and your objective is to mark down these fates and figure out the identities of every person on board from the events that unfold. Like 13 Sentinels, Obra Dinn tells its story in a fragmented achronological order, and while connecting events together is a part of this game's appeal as well, the real meat is in the notebook that you use to mark down each fate. It is a little repetitive at first when you're just noting down each gruesome murder method as you view them, but once the whole ship is open for you, that's when the game truly shines. You have to start looking for even the subtlest of hints to figure out the rest of the crewmates' identities, and when you figure them out on your own, you feel like a genius. I will admit that some of the hints are a little too vague, and there is a lot of guesswork and trial and error involved, but overall it's such a meticulously crafted game that I can't help but applaud. If you're a fan of mysteries in any way, shape or form, you owe it to yourself to check this game out. I don't know if the developer Lucas Pope is planning on making any more games in the future, but if they will be even half as cool as this one, we're in good hands. You might remember that I've mused my relationship with pure visual novels before. Years past saw me getting into Valhalla and Steins Gate, and I really kicked up to high gear with them in 2021. Because on this list alone, you're going to see 4 of these mostly pure VNs. Starting off, we have another installment in the science adventure series, Steins Gate's more attractive cousin, Chaos Child. Chaos Child is actually kind of a direct sequel to another Skiad game, Chaos Head. And while I had the opportunity to play both this year, Child came out on top for basically being the more interesting and better paced story overall. Like Steins Gate, the Chaos VNs have a unique route selection system, the Delusion Trigger. In certain moments, you have the option to view a positive or a negative daydream of a situation, and these are usually very interesting to say the least. But again, I appreciate the amount of extra this game does with its minimal gameplay. But as a visual novel, the story takes center stage, and Child's narrative is quite a doozy. The game follows Takeru Miyashiro, a student attempting to find out the truth of a gruesome serial murder similar to the New Generation Madness killings from Chaos Head. However, this leads to more than a few shenanigans, characters are suffering, some major secrets are revealed, and Takeru gets heaps of character development through emotional turmoil. This plot goes dummy, and the twists and turns in the latter half are insane. With themes like anti-escapism and the lengths one will go for their loved ones, along with some interesting and cool parallels to its predecessor, the narrative is more than enough to carry the game through. The central cast is great too, and while I feel some of them get the short end of the stick, I did come to love most of them a lot by the end. All in all, Chaos Child is amazing. If you're into visual novels and haven't played this game yet, then you truly don't live on the right side of reality. Or that's what I would say if I was some loser ranting about wrong and right-siders on a daily basis. I'm so glad pretentious people aren't real.
Guess Guess what also looks really stupid to imitate?
So me and Metroid have had a pretty rocky relationship. Not because I thought the games I played were bad or anything, it's just that with these games I get taken out of the experience due to getting lost so easily and having to look up guides. But with the release of Metroid Dread, I decided to try and get more into 2D Metroid and see if I could finally sink my attention span into one of them. And fellas, I had zero idea that the remake of the first Metroid would be the mission that hooked me. See, the joke is that the game's called Zero Mission. So Zero Mission was fucking awesome. I had some prior experience with 2D Metroid from Super Metroid, but I was still surprised how invested I was in the game from almost beginning to end. The game feel in Zero Mission is immaculate. Samus is really agile and the control is super smooth and responsive. Some of the precise jumping can be a bit tricky, but I feel like that's the same for nearly every 2D Metroid. I also really like how the game respects the player by giving you a destination, but not how to get there, leaving it for the player to discover. This does come with some usual cryptic Metroid bullshit, but I constantly felt the drive to push forward because the game was just that much fun. And that's not even mentioning the dozens of power-ups you get throughout the journey and the different collectibles like missile and energy tanks, all of which explode my dopamine supply. The 100% completion is not very fun though, and the game gave me the displeasure of one of the worst bosses I've faced in recent memory with Mother Brain, but there's so much good in this package that complaints be damned. This is my new favorite Metroid game, and I'm so excited to check out the rest of the series now, as well as revisit some I've already played to see if my attention span could take them better this time. We'll get a Metroid fan out of me yet. It's time for another visual novel, and we're going straight into the deep end with Cross-Channel for All People. Or just cross-channel. That's right, we're diving into the fan-translated territory, baby. And not just that, but it's also an Aero-gay. This is a game I heard a lot about from some of my Twitter mutuals, and eventually grew very interested in for a multitude of reasons. And having finished this as one of my first games of the year, I can say that they didn't hype this up for nothing. While the gameplay revolves around very basic dialogue choices, the setting makes things more interesting. The 8 central characters have all been left alone in a deserted world, which is also caught in a week-long time loop. And these weeks work as the game's different routes. By making the right choices, each loop leads to different scenarios and the story moves forward. And I like me a cool time loop story, so this tickles me in all the right places. However, it's the cast and the main themes of the game that make Cross-Channel stand out. The main character Taichi is not all right in the head, to put it lightly. In fact, the same could be said for most of the cast. Each character has their own issues that limit them from having a normal life, but they all have the desire to connect with other people. And it's this desire for human connection that drives the story and develops the characters through their difficulties connecting with others. And it comes to a head in a truly beautiful and meaningful way by the end. So basically what I'm saying is that mentally ill people are really interesting. It's hard to recommend Cross-Channel because it has a lot of disturbing and sexual content, and the translations available aren't the greatest. But if you can get past those hurdles, I can recommend this game with all my heart, because under its lewd and ugly shell, it's truly an inspiring story about why living is a lonely thing.
I'm sure you're all sick of me just talking about games released outside of 2021. Good news!
Tales of Arise, baby! Ever since its reveal at E3 2018, I've had my eye on Arise, being the latest in one of my favorite game series and all. And by having my eye on it, I mean suffering, because Namco kept drip-feeding as little info as possible for so long, while just releasing and updating mediocre mobile games. But that's all behind us now, and I gotta say, Tales of Arise is definitely one of the series' finest. Set in the dual worlds of Rena and Dana, the story follows Alphen, a Danan slave who's numb to pain. By a chance encounter with a rogue Renan woman and a local rebel group, Alphen gains an opportunity to fight back against the Renan oppressors and end their tyrannical reign. But as Tales games usually go, things are not that simple, and the plot soon develops into something much more complex. And while there are moments the narrative falters, I also think it deserves way more credit than it's given for sticking so strongly to the themes of control and oppression. It also helps that the cast is really great once again, a typical Tales core cast banger. But Arise's gameplay is what really sets it apart for me. Like Berseria, the game controls on a fully 3D plane, but this time you have actual normal attacks and you have to use skill? And this leads to a satisfying gameplay loop where you exploit enemy weaknesses, skillfully dodge and counter attacks, and use each character's different abilities to gain the upper hand. And with some new special attacks adding more cinematic flair to normal battles, the combat stays fun all throughout. Add in some Zestiria-style open areas and some cool resource management that really makes you feel like a poor slave with nothing, and Tales of Arise is an absolute joy to play and experience. It was absolutely worth the wait, and with the potential this game has shown with its various different aspects, I can't wait to see what's next in store for Tales. Speaking of one of the new best games of one of my favorite series, I bet this is also a huge fucking surprise. Suffice to say, as a big Ace Attorney fan, the official English release of the previously Japan-only Great Ace Attorney duology was incredibly exciting news, especially considering the series' history with localizing East-exclusive titles. And while the first game, Adventures, didn't quite grab me as well as it could have when I played its fan translation a couple of years back, its sequel, Resolve, was more than worth the wait. The game picks up pretty much right after the events of the first game. The protagonist, Ryunosuke, is still practicing as a lawyer in Great Britain, but each case he undertakes moves him closer and closer to the dark underbelly of London and the troubled past of several central characters. And it's this overarching plot and the way it answers everything left open by the first game that elevates this game above and beyond for me. And that's not to say the cases themselves are nothing special, far from it. Resolve has one of, if not the strongest lineup of cases in the whole series. They have so many cool and insane scenarios and twists that keep the player on the edge of their seat, and it's glorious. And coupled with the standard satisfying Ace Attorney gameplay and the fun new mechanics introduced by the first game, Resolve keeps you engaged and entertained from start to finish. There are some things I could nitpick about, but honestly, this game went so beyond my already pretty high expectations that they really don't matter. After being so surrounded by constant negativity within this fandom, I think I needed a game this good to remind me why I love Ace Attorney so much. And while I wouldn't say it's quite the series' magnum opus, it made me love this new cast just as much as the mainline games and gave me an overall experience that was simply phenomenal. They weren't lying. That really was a great Ace Attorney. What is this? A fresh new entry in the Yakuza series, and it's not taking the top spot on my list? Stop the presses! In all seriousness though, don't let the quote-unquote low placement fool you. I love the original Judgment to bits, and that applies tenfold to its sequel, Lost Judgment. Following once again in the footsteps of the lawyer-turned-PI Takayuki Yagami, the game revolves around a mysterious murder of a student teacher previously accused of school bullying. And from there, he soon finds himself in the middle of fighting yet another conspiracy, as one does, finding that the culprit's intentions may not be very black and white. And it's these questions of morality the game focuses on, what is truly right and just, and how those who can't be judged by law should or shouldn't be punished. And it makes for a very engaging and thought-provoking narrative. As for the gameplay, the combat, which was already a ton of fun in the original, is now even better. Some of the annoying parts of the original have now been ironed out. The speed is so much faster, the styles have been balanced a lot better with dozens of cool new moves and the addition of the snake style, and some of them even take advantage of the game's physics. This is easily one of the best combat systems in the series, and fights never feel tiresome with how fun it is. And with some of the best side content in the series, fun side cases and new school stories that have their own cool gameplay styles and great overarching narrative that also shows Yagami's more caring side, Lost Judgment is one of the best to ever do it. I really hope this game won't be the last we see of Yagami, but even if that does turn out to be the case, at least he went out with a banger. Okay, so I didn't really have honorable mentions for this list because, like I said, I didn't really play that many new games this year. But just gonna say real quick that Yakuza Like a Dragon and Chaos Head are both very cool video games that definitely would have been here if their respective series weren't already represented. And also Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, but they're a remix of games I've already played, so yeah. Now for the number one. So to beat games from some of my favorite video game series out there, number one's gotta be something pretty special, right? Well, as luck would have it, 2021 did indeed have something that special. And it's another visual novel. I am deeply sorry for not being a hardcore gamer. However, as much as I love every game on this list, none of them come even close to how much I adore The House in Fata Morgana. Except maybe Lost Judgment. Now, this is another one of those with very minimal gameplay. Heck, even its dialogue choices are kind of few and far between, but how it makes up for that is the way it utilizes the visual novel format. The game keeps a lot of its secrets behind the limited point of view, and sometimes even tricks the player into taking a completely different line of thought from what it's actually going for. The game even hides shit in the text backlog of all things sometimes. And that's not even going into the story. Not only is the narrative structure very unique, with the first chapters detailing different tragedies surrounding the titular mansion and the real plot only getting revealed afterwards, but the story itself is a powerful one with themes of empathy, acceptance, and forgiveness. And this is shown throughout the game with how innocent people suffer because of prejudice or other unfortunate circumstances. The journey is definitely a harrowing one, but you're going to feel insane emotional catharsis by the end of it all. It's a shame this game has become a poster boy for pretentious Twitter users who think it's the only good visual novel because it's such a genuine story. It's great at balancing levity with its dark subject matter, the characters are all really well written, the music is weird but I like it a lot, the atmosphere is unmatched, but I'm not gonna pretend it's perfect. Fata Morgana absolutely has its problems, but it kept me engaged pretty much from beginning to end and is overall an experience I will never forget.
I'm FinnishDuck, and thank goodness there are games like Fata Morgana to teach us that bigotry is a big no-no. And really, if you think otherwise, what's wrong with you?
I wanna be a hero. Pokemon!
Hi there, dear viewer. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you enjoyed yourself. I have to apologize for the lateness of this video once again. I really wanted to get the Quack Attack video done before firing all cylinders on this video, and like I said earlier, I wasn't really sure how I wanted to do this video at first. Plus, my last year of university has a lot of work I also had to focus on, so yeah. Right now, I'm not entirely sure when the next video is coming since there is still some schoolwork left, but I do have some plans and I hope you'll look forward to them. Like I've said before, it'll probably be inconsistent, but the content itself will be the bomb.